students, welcome once again in the class which we were already discussing about the diuretics. Today in this class we are going to discuss the other classification of diuretics, that is we are going to discuss about the thiazide, the loop diuretics and the sparing diuretics. So, let us begin with the topic. Diuretic agents, as we have already discussed in the previous class, are those agents which accelerate the rate of urine formation by acting at the various sites of nephron to cause diuresis, and ultimately it causes natriuresis, that means the removal of sodium ions through the urine from the body through the urine. So, mostly these diuretic agents are work in the condition, that is edema, that can be associated with many things, that is cardiovascular, renal, endocrinic activities, abnormalities, and as well as in the treatment of hypertension, glaucoma and other clinical disorders. Then we have already discussed about this chart here, but once again I am going to discuss this because in this class we are going to discuss about 3 classes, that is thiazides, loop diuretics and potassium sparing diuretics. So, in the previous class we have discussed about the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors and osmotic diuretics, and here we are going to discuss about the loop diuretics, thiazides and potassium sparing diuretics. So, where the loop diuretics work, this is the typical structure of nephron. In this nephron we have seen this is called as the glomerulus, this is the glomerus, this is the proximal convoluted tubule, this is the thin descending loop of Henle, this is the thin ascending loop of Henle, this part is the thick ascending loop of Henle, this is the distal convoluted tubule and this is the collecting duct. So, these are the main part of any nephron, and here we are going to discuss about the loop diuretics, the thiazides and the potassium sparing diuretics. So, where does they work? The loop diuretics work at the thick ascending loop of Henle, here it works, where you can easily see there are ions written here, that is chloride and sodium ions which are generally reabsorbed from this part of the nephron. So, what we are going to discuss that how this loop diuretics helps us to stop the reabsorption of such ions from the nephron, so creating diuresis. So, loop diuretics work is thick ascending loop. Then comes the thiazide. Thiazides works on the distal convoluted tubule. You can again see that 3 type of ions are written here, that is sodium, chloride and calcium ions are reabsorbed under the condition of that is ADH sensitive or PTH sensitive agent is here, a PTH sensitive region is here, that means the reabsorption happens here in the PTH sensitive region here in the distal convoluted tubule, and ultimately the potassium sparing diuretics work in the collecting duct, where again it is comes under the ADH hormone and the reabsorption of water happens here, the reabsorption of water happens here. So, let us dig in the topic. Thiazides are the diuretics which were discovered in early 1957 as a result of effort to synthesize more potent carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. So, how they work? It subsequently become very clear that thiazide, it inhibits the sodium chloride rather than the sodium bicarbonate ions. Transport, that their action was predominantly in the distal convoluted tubule rather than the proximal convoluted tubule. So, here we have a class which hits the other region in the nephron than the carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. Earlier the scientists were searching for more potent diuretics, more potent carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, and ultimately we got our thiazides. which after some research it was very clear that these thiazides are generally inhibiting the NaCl rather than the sodium bicarbonates, and their transport is inhibited, and it works in the distal convoluted tubule, whether the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors were working in the proximal convoluted tubule. So, here we have two very potent classes which works on the different parts of the nephron and giving the diuresis. So, the drug which is our interest, which is of our interest, is chlorothiazide. What is the mechanism of action of chlorothiazide? We know that it is working in the distal convoluted tubule. So, that means in the distal convoluted tubule the reabsorption of certain ions were happening. So, this chlorothiazide or this the class of thiazides, what they are doing is they stops the reabsorption of those ions in the distal convoluted tubule. In the structure it is very clear that this is the distal convoluted tubule. Simply you can see that this is the apical cell membrane and this is the basolateral cell membrane. Here we can see that there are several ions written, that means the here what happens is the reabsorption of sodium, calcium, chloride and calcium ions happens, and these thiazide what they are doing is they are working here and stops the reabsorption of these three ions into the distal convoluted tubule. And in the peritubular capillary what happens? There is an exchange of sodium ion with potassium ion and calcium ion with sodium ion. So, ultimately after the reabsorption what generally happens here, there is a huge amount of sodium ion present inside the cell, calcium ion present inside the cell, the huge amount they are present. Hence, by stopping the reabsorption here, we can easily decrease the amount of sodium, chloride and calcium ion in the distal convoluted tubule, and these are get excreted via the urine. So, these drugs compete for the chloride binding site of the sodium chloride symporter and inhibit the reabsorption of sodium and chloride. So, here is the synthesis of chlorothiazide. It happens with 3-chloroaniline and in presence of it converts into a metabolite, and then in presence of ammonia it again converts into a intermediate which ultimately reacts and forms chlorothiazide. This is a two-step synthesis of chlorothiazide, very easy synthesis of chlorothiazide is here. So, 3-chloroaniline is converted into metabolite number 1 or intermediate number 1, which then reacts with ammonia and converted into metabolite or intermediate number 2, and ultimately it is converted into chlorothiazide. Then let us see the SAR of thiazides. For studying the SAR of thiazide, the structure at the right uppermost corner of the slide, you can refer the structure there because numbering is done on that structure. So, at the position second, the presence of small alkyl groups such as methyl can be there. That means, that cannot, if that second group, if the nitrogen at the second group is substituted with small groups like methyl group or simply hydrogen, there will be no deterioration of the activity. Then comes if the substitution at the third position determines the potency, duration of action. That means, it is very important to see what is going to be substituted at the third position. If the third position is substituted with very bulky groups, very heavy groups, very groups that have their own electron withdrawing nature or something, then they can hamper the potency and duration of action of the drug. Then comes, if the bond between the third and fourth, if the double bond between the third position and fourth position hampers, that means the potency of the diuretics will suffer. So, the loss of carbon carbon double bond between third and fourth position of nucleus, it increases the diuretic potency approximately to 3 to 10 folds, it can alter. Then comes the direct substitution of fourth, fifth or eighth position with an alkyl group usually results in the diminished diuretic activity. So, the fourth position, fifth position and eighth positions should be free. Next is the substitution of sixth position with an activating group is essential for the diuretic activity. Hence, the best substituent include are chloride, bromide and CF3 and nitro group. That means, these groups can be used at these groups can be substituted at sixth position to increase the activity. And the last point says the sulfamoyl group in the seventh position is a prerequisite for the diuretic activity. That means, the sulfamoyl group at the seventh position is very important for the activity. So, what will be the uses of thiazide group? Thiazide group is a very important class of diuretics after carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. So, they can be used in treatment of glaucoma because they are associated with the treatment of edema related conditions. So, the treatment of glaucoma, it can reduce the intraocular pressure and alkalizing the urine. These drugs are given in combination with amiloride, allopurinol to prevent the formation of calcium stones in hypercalciuric patients. That means, they can be given, they are generally prescribed with the in combination with certain drugs for the prevention of formation of calcium stones in the hypercalciuric patients. Then next classes are loop diuretics. Loop diuretics are selectively they inhibit the sodium chloride reabsorption in the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle. Because of the large sodium chloride absorptive capacity of this segment and the fact that the diuretic action of these drugs is not limited by the development of acidosis as is the case with the carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. Loop diuretics are the most efficacious diuretic agents currently available, and the drug of interest is furosemide. So, again this group basically hits the inhibition of NaCl reabsorption, and this works again in the thick ascending loop of Henle's, and this which is nearly to the distal convoluted tubule, and it works almost same as our previous diuretics, that is thiazides. The loop diuretics are rapidly reabsorbed, they are eliminated by the kidney by glomerular filtration and tubular secretion, increase in magnesium and calcium excretion. So, they works along with the chloride ions, they also works in increasing in the magnesium and calcium excretion. And what is the mechanism of loop diuretics is, the loop diuretic acts on the sodium potassium calcium symporter, we have seen in the structure before. So, the loop diuretics acts on the sodium, potassium and calcium symporter in the thick ascending limb of loop of Henle to inhibit sodium, chloride and potassium reabsorption. This is achieved by competing for the chloride binding site. So, they generally add on, they generally binds with the chloride binding sites and then inhibiting the reabsorption of sodium, potassium and calcium ions. They increase the renal prostaglandins, which resulting in the dilation of the blood vessels and ultimately it reduces the peripheral vascular resistance. That means they can also works as potent vasodilators, because they increases the renal prostaglandins and ultimately causing the dilation of blood vessels, which reduces the peripheral vascular resistance. So, this is the synthesis of furosemide, in which 2,4-dichlorobenzoic acid gets reacted with the ammonia, and it is again a one step synthesis. It prepares an intermediate which ultimately forms our furosemide. So, furosemide, as we have seen, is a drug of interest for us, and the furosemide synthesis is very easy, that is a single step synthesis here. And then comes the SAR of loop diuretics. The loop diuretics, again you can consult the structure at the uppermost corner of the slide, uppermost right corner of the slide. It has the numberings, and let us discuss the SAR. They are either 5-sulfamoyl 2-amino-benzoic acid, or they can also be called as 5-sulfamoyl 3-amino-benzoic acid derivatives. Okay. So, again I am repeating the point, they are either called as 5-sulfamoyl 2-amino-benzoic acid or 5-sulfamoyl 3-amino-benzoic acid. That means, at the second position, at the third position, this is the second position and this is the third position, there can be possibility of addition of amino groups. Then the carbamoyl group at C1, that is carbo 1, provides the optimal diuretic activity. So, at the first position, the group is showing that it will give the optimal diuretic activities. Then the substitution of activating group and in the carbon 4, that is the fourth position, by chloride. If we have applied, we have seen that at the fourth position there is a addition of chloride ion. So, the carbonyl group of the substitution of activating group in the carbon 4 by chloride, alkoxy, aniline, benzyl or benzoyl group at fourth position, that increases the diuretic activity. So, we have seen some positions, some substitution at desired positions can alter the diuretic activity, it can increase or it can decrease. So, in this manner, first, second, third and fourth positions are responsible for the diuretic activities. Then the presence of sulfamoyl group at the fifth position. At the fifth position, the sulfamoyl group again is very important for the activity. It is the most important substitution, I must say. The presence of sulfamoyl group in the fifth position is essential for the activity. The two series of sulfamoyl benzoic acid differ in the nature of the functional group substituted in second position and third position. What it means here, the first point what is written here is, they are either 5-sulfamoyl 2-amino-benzoic acid or 5-sulfamoyl 3-amino-benzoic acid derivatives. That means, the two series of the 5-sulfamoyl benzoic acid differs in the nature of the functional group that substituted in second or third position. Then the presence of furfuryl, phenyl and thienyl methyl group at second amino group of 5-sulfamoyl 2-amino-benzoic acid gives the maximum diuretic activity. So, the presence of furfuryl, phenyl and thienyl methyl group at second amino group of 5-sulfamoyl 2-amino-benzoic acid gives the maximum diuretic activity. The wide ranges of alkyl groups can be substituted at the third amino group of 5-sulfamoyl 3-amino-benzoic acid without modifying the optimal diuretic activity, and a molecule with a weakly acidic group to direct the drug to the kidney, and an alkylating moiety to react with sulfhydryl group and lipophilic group seemed to provide the best combination of diuretic in this class. So, we can simply say that in the last point, if weak acidic group is added, is directly given as a drug to the kidney, and an alkylating moiety which is reacting with the sulfhydryl group and the lipophilic groups seems to provide the best combination. That means, this will be the best combination for treating the uretic condition in this class. What are the uses here? So, the loop diuretics can be used again in the edema conditions. Edema can be written as edema and oedema again. So, edema due to cardiac failure, hepatic disease, nephrotic syndrome, it can be used in the acute pulmonary edema and cerebral edema. Pregnancy and idiopathic edema it can be used, and in acute and chronic renal failure it can be used, and barbiturate poisoning and salicylate poisoning it can be used. In these are the uses of your loop diuretics. Then comes our next class is potassium sparing diuretics. As the name suggests, it spare the potassium. So, till now we have seen the classes which hits a particular ion in to do its diuresis property, like carbonic anhydrase inhibitor that hits the sodium ions, the osmotic diuretics that hits the that does the water takes the advantage of its water solubility and low molecular weight and hits all the ions which are which can be exported through osmotic pressure, they can be used there. Then comes the loop diuretic, it hits the chloride ion, and here comes the potassium sparing diuretic, it generally hits the potassium ion. So, every class of diuretics hits a particular ion to fight with. Now, the potassium sparing diuretics prevents the potassium secretion by antagonizing the effects of aldosterone in collecting tubules, and inhibition may occur by direct pharmacological antagonism of mineralocorticoid receptors, or by inhibition of sodium influx through ion channels in the luminal membrane, and later property appears to be shared by adenosine antagonist, which is the very last part of this class. This is generally not considered as the class. So, there are no drugs in this adenosine antagonists in this in your syllabus. So, we are not going to add on this adenosine antagonist in these classes. So, the latter property appears to be shared by adenosine antagonist, which primarily blunts sodium reabsorption in the proximal convoluted tubule, but also blunt sodium reabsorption and potassium secretion in the collecting tubules. So, ultimately potassium sparing diuretics works well by excreting out the potassium from the collecting duct or collecting tubules. Then what is the mechanism of action of potassium sparing diuretics? Potassium sparing diuretics, or simply the class has spironolactone in it. So, we will discuss the spironolactone. So, they act by inhibiting sodium reabsorption in the late distal tubule and thus indirectly spare potassium excretions. Aldosterone, by binding to its receptor in the cytoplasm, increases expression and function of sodium channel and sodium pump. Spironolactone competitively inhibits the binding of aldosterone and abolishes its biological activity. So, ultimately your potassium sparing diuretics fight with the reabsorption of sodium channel through the sodium ions from the sodium channel and through the sodium pump, and spironolactone competitively inhibits the binding of aldosterone and abolishes its biological activities. What are the uses here? The uses are potassium sparing diuretics are in the Liddle's syndrome. It is also called as pseudo hyperaldosteronism. In what happens in Liddle's syndrome, it is you can say that it is a genetic disorder which is characterized by the early and frequently severe high blood pressures associated with low plasma renin activity, metabolic alkalosis, low blood potassium level and normal to low the aldosterone level. So, this is the Liddle syndrome, and the drug is used to treat the Liddle syndrome, and amiloride is used to treat lithium induced nephrogenic diabetic insipidus also. Let us summarize again once again. So, diuretic drugs are those drugs which are used in the urine formation and happens by doing. So, these were the uses of our potassium sparing diuretics, and till here we have discussed the classes of diuretics. We now know what are the uses of diuretics, how they work. Every class we have discussed. These are the references I have used till. So, there are certain books from the chemistry section, that is Wilson Giswold. I have used the synthesis of essential drugs for the synthesis purposes. I have used the Foy's principle for the SAR, and I have used Kedzang, Lippincott, P. Yogeshwari, D. Sriram for the pharmacological actions. Hope the session was useful, and thank you so much.